going on, everybody? Welcome to a special edition of the Wrestling Junkies podcast. I'm Eric, Mr. Cincinnati Robinson, and conspicuous by his absence is the podcast dad, who was unfortunately unable to join me today for this conversation, but we will be having him back next week. Our latest guest is a multi-year veteran who is a Lucha Libre sensation that has competed all over the country. He is the current reigning and defending Summit Wrestling Association Mid-Atlantic champion. He is the Henshin hero, Kamen MK. Kamen, how are you? Nice to finally meet you, and welcome to the show.
Doing great. How are you? Good.
I'm fantastic. This is one of the favorite parts of our podcast is getting to have conversations with wrestlers on the independent scene, and just hearing different stories, great conversations. So we certainly are grateful that you were able to join today. So let's just get right on into it. Here at the
Sure.
Wrestling Junkies podcast, we look at wrestlers as superheroes, and every superhero has an origin story. So, Common, tell us about some of your earliest memories of professional wrestling.
Oh, sure. I think early on, one of my first memories is actually watching uh, Bret Hart and and Jim the Anvil wrestle, and I can't remember what show it was, but I remember looking at Bret Hart and going, and of course he's in the land of giants, but going, oh, that guy's not that big.
Yeah.
He was very relatable all of a sudden. And then watching him do amazing things and it wasn't all just big slam bang wrestling. It was like, oh, there's nuance, there's little moments that little guys can do, which is great. And then from there, it led down a rabbit hole. I grew up during the Attitude Era. I also grew up watching Ultimate Muscle and Kanoko Man and all that stuff. So the heightened reality of anime and manga smashed together with the Attitude Era really created this amazing world that I just couldn't help want to be a part of.
Absolutely, that's wonderful. So, and I'm glad that you kind of transitioned to this, because you have a lucha libre wrestling style that's essentially your background. Take our audience through, how do you decide that that's the style that you want to present in the ring? What is it about lucha libre that drew you to it, as far as your inspiration for what you do now?
Oh, yeah. So when I first started training, I had thoughts of what I wanted to do, as everyone does. I thought I was going to be a great mouthpiece. I had the eyebrow practiced. I had done the elbow. I imagined the millions and millions cheering for me, and I was ready for that moment. And then once I got into the ring, my trainers at that time really recognized that, oh, you're quite agile, you're quite fast, and quickly they led me down the way where they're like, look, this is your asset, and this is what is going to make you stand out. You're fast, you're light, and one of them was very cool. He was like, and you're smooth, and that's very unique. And so they encouraged me to go with that, and they had me start looking at Johnny Saint, Marco Rollerball, and then of course Skida, Turbo, Negro Navarro. So I started from Yave, and then inevitably they leveled me up to full-on Lucha Libre. So
Wow. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. So your nickname again is the Henshin Hero. What's the meaning behind the word Henshin? It's certainly a new one for me. So I'm very curious to see what the origin was behind this.
so Henshin is a Japanese word for transform. So Henshin Heroes is actually a genre. It's a genre of Japanese television that gave birth to Power Rangers, Kamen Riders, and all of those things where your average person becomes larger than life by transforming into a Power Ranger, a Super Sentai, an Ultraman, very much all of those moments. And they're all typically called Henshin Heroes. And realizing that when I put on a mask, I become larger than life. I become something bigger than what I am when I'm just walking down the street or in the grocery aisle, right?
Yeah. Makes sense. Makes sense. And
Yeah.
I'm glad that you brought that up about your masks. I mean, masks are important to the history of Lucha Libre. I mean, it's like peanut butter and jelly. Take us through the thought process you had when you selected your masks for your persona and your character.
Oh, sure. So I was very fortunate. I started in a different mask, and then I wrestled unmasked when I was training. But when I finally came to this mask, it was I wanted to. So my lineage sort of comes from Skida and T2P and Ultimo Dragon, the hybrid of lucha and Japanese wrestling. And so I wanted to kind of allude to that and keep that tied together. So the idea of a Lucha Libre mask that has Japanese influences, because my mask is very Kamen Rider inspired, hence Kamen MK. And so it looks like a helmet. And it's very hard to breathe in sometimes, as you can
Yeah.
imagine.
Yeah.
So
Neat. Okay. So being a masked wrestler, creating that unique reaction or that chemistry with the fan base. How do you do that? Knowing that no one's seeing what you look like. What do you do to try to go beyond the mask so that people do foster that connection with you?
well, if you can probably tell the way I'm talking. I don't normally talk like this all day, every day. I
Yeah.
don't talk like a Muppet in my normal life. But it's just like when I said when I put on the mask, I feel larger than life. The way I speak and the way I communicate becomes larger than life. I exaggerate everything, and when I'm working in the ring to reach out to that audience, it does mean I have to reach bigger and broader and harder than in a different way. And it's a beautiful thing because then all of a sudden I'm trying to reach the audience beyond my words, right? And I'm trying to reach the audience using not just my face, but my body and showing them how I'm getting up and versus when I'm hurting and what hurts versus how how do I feel when I'm on top and I'm got the momentum and I'm fired up and feeling the moment. And I let that buoy me and get me bouncy if I want to be bouncy. And then when I'm exhausted, it kind of allows me to really, really be exhausted.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have to like pretend I'm not. I can literally just go, and that conveys it in a bigger way for people. So,
Okay, okay, and and along those lines, especially, there's a pressure that can come with performing in front of a live crowd. I mean, that's what
mhm.
wrestling is. It's live performance art. Do you feel that being a masked wrestler that helps you to better deal with that pressure? If you're if they're not seeing in your eyes and kind of what you're thinking in any given moment, do you feel that gives you an additional advantage in being able to adapt and handle that pressure?
uh, I think I think being fully masked really accentuates uh, or really highlights the little moments that I have in a way that when I'm not big or animated, it also conveys an idea or thought. And so to your question, like if I'm having a moment and I'm big and brash and loud, and all of a sudden I become really small, the audience goes, "Oh, what's up with that?" And so wearing the mask allows me to play with those levels of volume in a way that I normally wouldn't through my
Hmm.
physicality. Um, yeah, and I don't feel like it adds as a barrier to me the performance though, if that's what you're asking. I don't feel like it's
Sure.
difficult or it interferes with my ability to interact with people directly.
Okay.
I actually feel like it forces me to come. I don't know if you ever watched Hitch, but I got to go
Yeah.
90. I got to go 90. They go 10. I got to go 90.
Yeah. I like it. I like it. Very, very well said.
Yeah.
Um, as I was doing my research for this interview, I've seen some of the unique events that you have been a part of. There was an event last year called Lucha Libre, and this was a Lucha Libre exhibition of sorts. It was billed as a 90-minute thrill ride. Um, how did this event differ from any traditional, independent wrestling card that we may attend?
So yeah, Lucha Teo was a Lucha Libre theater show. It was a theater play at the
Oh
Goodman
wow!
Theater, and I put on a different mask there. I played Huitzilopochtli, which is the sun god in Aztec mythology, uh, and we did a variation of the of Huitzilopochtli's life cycle and birth as the basis of that play. And the nature of that play was we went through a full calendar year, as it were. And in that span, you saw me debut as a rookie, make it through, get a tag partner, get and have my tag partner turn on me, get hurt, come back, just in time for the big payoff and the big mania moment and save the universe, as it were. And so it felt, for me, it was very exciting. I literally lived the WrestleMania season in 90 minutes, and I took the audience with me every time. Um, as terms of and how it relates to wrestling, I did 5 matches in 90 minutes, and I did it 8 to 9 times a week. And so, and I did that show for about 2 months. So,
Yeah, that is an absolutely intense. I mean, that's just intense. I mean, and you know, wrestling as a whole, there are people that are. I mean, that's the job that you eventually want is to be able to wrestle, a couple of hundred times a year.
mm,
What did you do to make sure you maintained yourself physically for something, for a very rigorous schedule that's also very, very condensed?
uh, I think I started off once I knew I was cast and booked the job. I personally took off. I stopped taking dates on my own, and that was like 3 months leading up to first rehearsals. And from there, I went back to basics. I made sure to increase my stamina, and so I did a lot of cardio. And I just made sure that I was ready for I best prepared my body for the sprint that would be, that I imagined it would be. Given that I saw the script, and I was like, oh, there's 6 matches, and I'm in 5 of them, and then I have to talk in between it. So I'd prepared that way, and then during the show, because it was with the Goodman Theater, they took very good care of us. It's like a major regional theater, and so maybe not. It's very different from like your average indie wrestling show. We had we had physiotherapy
Oh, wow.
every week to make sure that all the wrestlers were okay and they weren't tracking injuries through shows. And we were also, I would say personally, I working with Oski, who was the lucha coordinator for that show, and Paloma Star, we all worked to create sustainable matches that we could repeat at 10 in the morning for a school bus full of children, and then at 11 o'clock at night for the drunk crowd coming in. So,
I
uh,
like that. I like that. I mean, it's especially with especially with plays, I mean, it's just so intense. It's such an intense schedule, and the fact that they do take care of you, I mean, that's fantastic because that's not something that you get in a traditional indie wrestling sort of environment. So who knows? Maybe that's an area for crossover down the line eventually. Um,
yeah.
but another show that I came across you did, this was a 2-day event, Super Art Fight. It was a mashup of pro wrestling and a live art exhibition. What is it about these two? I mean, because wrestling is an art. What is it about these two mediums that work together for an event such as this?
So yeah, that was a Super Art Fight, which is a group I set up in Baltimore, Maryland, and with Flying V, which is based in Silver Spring, Maryland. And I think the synthesis and the moment of where they come together is, best way I can say it is the the rock and roll vibe that both companies have to their art. Uh, like Super Art Fight is, a lot of it is born of wrestling tropes and traditions and conventions. If you ever never seen their show, it's Battle Pictionary. It's like tagging on top of each other, and there's commentary, and they're given topics, and they change topics halfway through, or they throw a wrench into it, and then all of a sudden they're like tagging on top of each other's tags and like drawing
Yeah,
violence on top of each other's violence, and then you have commentary who's raging over the top in the room. So once I saw the show and realized what that was, and seeing what wrestling does, I was like, oh, it's not that far of a bridge. We are They're using an art and they're being violent with it in a way that's also storytelling and narrative driven, and has high stakes, and there's winners and losers, heroes and villains. And I'm like, the same can actually be said about pro wrestling.
yeah.
And so having us meet together, they have larger than life characters who actually look like wrestling characters. And we're like, oh, well, I remember looking at some of them like, well, where did you get your gear? That was all. You have some good looking gear.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Very cool. Very cool. So I want to talk about that championship that is sitting behind your shoulder. You are the
Oh
current
yeah.
reigning and defending Summit Wrestling Association Mid Atlantic Champion. That is a
There you go.
beautiful looking belt. Congratulations again.
Oh,
Um,
thank you. Thank you.
a- as you embark into this championship reign, what are your hopes for what you want to bring to this division for SWA?
So I'd like to bring uh everyone, at least a lot of people I talk to, they want to make their title the working title, right? They want to make it the work rate title. They want it to be the title that carries the standard. And I'm no different. I want this title to be defended. I want the best of the best to come out for it. And more than that, I want to establish a value with it. Not just like not so much like, oh man, that's like 10 pounds of gold, right? It's how many people have vied for it, how many people have tried for it, and how many people have have succeeded or failed for it. I hope to bring during my unique reign, I hope to bring a different quality to it. And Dino held it before, and then is Dino has qualities and traits and personality that is unique to him. And I hope to bring or add more color to it by bringing lucha libre and a technicality and a smoothness, as my trainers would say, to the work that this belt provides. Like some belts are the big slam bang belts, some belts are the hardcore 24/7 belts. I would like this belt to take on some of the colors that I bring and fight for the safety of the universe as a henshin hero.
I absolutely love that. I absolutely love that. Um, so at this point, we've been talking all things Kamen MK for about 17, 18 minutes now. So
Hmm.
now we want to give you this opportunity to spotlight, excuse me,
Hmm.
any wrestlers that we may not have heard of before, and people we should be checking out, looking forward to in 2024.
Oh, sure. First and foremost, Elo Neal, old rival, close friend. He wrestles up and down the Northeast, very much like I do. He's actually he's Wrestlers Lab's current champion right now. He's a great guy, great wrestler to work with. Jet Chigori, he's a great guy. If you ever meet Jet Chigori, he's a walking mouthpiece. The best thing I could say.
Okay.
He's he knows how to talk his way into a fight, and he makes good on it. He's also a very smooth luchador or lucha libre inspired wrestler, but he's also he's just very slick, very smooth, and very funny to talk to. The Cyberhawks are back. I'm a big fan of the Cyberhawks. If you can't tell, they're heroes from space. I have a thing for
Yes.
heroes.
Love
So
that. Love that.
Dangerhawk, Razorhawk, and Thunderhawk, they're one of the cleanest trios I've I've ever been in a ring with. The they're very unique in that they do tandem moves
Mhm.
versus moves that trade off. So they'll do mirrored 619s, they'll do mirrored swantons,
Wow.
they'll do they're very and that kind of timing is you have to be crisp. There's such a high margin of error, not just for injury, but I don't know about you, but I would hate to be the guy who has to do a 619 or a swanton with one of the best and be the guy who's slightly not that good.
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
and so they're there and they're pushing each other and like this is my form. You have to look just as good as I do when I do it. So that's a great challenge to watch people do. Uh,
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, no,
uh,
I've seen you've posted some stuff about them on their socials. So I mean, they very much have again that look of just larger than life, and that's the beauty of lucha libre wrestling is that it is the celebration of the grandiosity. You know.
yeah, I think for me, what's really engaging is the ability to inspire beyond myself, but and use use stories and moments that isn't just married to me and my perspective. Uh, I think, like for example, just recently, a great example is: do we really care about Dwayne Johnson or do we care about The Rock? Right?
Yeah.
right? When Dwayne came out and he was like, "Yes, I'm a new board member of Endeavor," and we're like, "Boo, we know, really, that's." But as soon as he came out and he was wearing that $500,000 shirt and his loafers, and he started to tear people apart in his
Yeah.
sunglasses, he was larger than life again,
Yeah.
and that allows me as a fan to go back to that moment, and all of a sudden I get to believe in heroes and villains in a way that haven't done since I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beautiful thing about this. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. As we kind of wind down the interview, and this kind of segues into a couple of questions I have for you. The first
yeah.
one is, since you brought up The Rock, I would like to get your thoughts. Does Cody finish the story at WrestleMania this year?
Oh, I personally would love for Cody to finish the story. I think that would be one of the best moments they can possibly create, for fans, for Cody, for locker rooms all across the country, whether it be AEW, WWE, Impact, New Japan. He's worked everywhere,
Yeah.
right? And so, but I'll put it this way. I'll say this to other people too. Far be it from me to tell $1 billion company how to make $1 billion, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely, absolutely. I get that. I mean, it's taken a couple of twists and turns and a bit of a wonky start to get in there, but I think they finally smoothed things out, and it does feel like it does feel like there is a plan that is working, and there's a lot of subtle nuances that have people buzzing right now, and I mean, it's just the hottest time to be a wrestling fan.
Are you? I was talking to someone else. I was like, how is it that for 8 months out of the year, I can't be asked to know what's happening on SmackDown? But as soon as January hits, somehow they have me going, can you believe what they're doing?
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, it's been, especially this year, more so than ever before,
Yeah.
where there have been the variables at play. Usually, I mean, for the last, I mean, Roman Reigns has been in what, 8, 9 WrestleMania main events at this point, and they've all kind of telegraphed that that's where they're going. But
Hmm.
with this, there has been some genuine suspense, some genuine intrigue, things that would, lead you to believe that this title run may not be as safe as it has been in recent years.
Like, imagine if they, after the Rumble, Cody was just like, yeah, I'm going to Mania, and they played it out in the normal way, right?
Yeah,
We've been like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. But all of a sudden, there was a moment of will they, won't they?
yeah,
In between the Rumble and Mania. And all of a sudden, all of us were like talking about it. Twitter was a buzz. And all of a sudden, there's a buy rate high again.
yeah.
And I'm just like, wow, I don't know if that's genius marketing, genius booking, or whatever that is, but it's sort of like how I felt about Roman building him
Yeah.
up. They made him the greatest heel of all time by having him literally get booed out of buildings for a decade.
Yeah, I mean, there's an undeniable magnetism that Roman Reigns has, and once they finally, stripped away the Shield character and let him inject a little bit more of his personality
Hmm.
into what he's doing right now, that authenticity is important. And I'm sure that you would feel the same way about your in-ring work and what you do, and how you have crafted the character that you present to people.
Oh yeah, I think there's an undeniable quality, and it's the same as when I was acting. There's an undeniable quality about the person who's performing and how that person is living through that moment. Because we all do headlocks, but when
Yeah,
I'm in a headlock, how do I feel in the moment and how I express myself in that moment is going to be different than a 6'5", 275-pound billionaire who's now a board member
yeah,
of Endeavor. He's going to feel differently about a headlock than I will. And it's all that history and all that presence and all that person in that basic move is what makes us all unique and different and makes it worth watching.
love that, love that. So as we wrap up this interview, this is another WrestleMania related question. This is an ongoing
Sure.
debate that we have on the Wrestling Junkies podcast. When you hear Mr. WrestleMania, do you think Shawn Michaels or The Undertaker?
Oh, I mean, I think, yeah, I gotta say Sean. I gotta say Sean. Where are you? Where are you? Where are
I,
you
I
at?
I'm Sean all day. Chris
Yeah,
is firmly Team Undertaker. I, and again, we ask this question to every guest that's on
yeah,
our show, or at least we have over the last couple of months. And a lot of the general consensus is that yes, the streak is a big part of wrestling history, and especially with WrestleMania, like it is important. But
yeah.
not all of those matches were the greatest matches by the Undertaker. You know,
No,
your
yeah,
Giant Gonzalez,
yeah.
your Jimmy Snukas, or quick squashes. With Sean, he did a little bit of everything: singles, tag team,
Mhm.
all the way up to the main event, all the way up into that marquee attraction status. And there was a consistency in the work rate that we saw that I think that a lot of people vote Mr. WrestleMania for that. But
Yeah, I think there's to your point. Yeah, there's this great technicality and work rate that Sean brings, and it's kind of ironic that I'm saying this in my mask, but there's a there's a human quality that Sean brings that Taker has, but Sean exudes. And it's those moments where he looks at Rick and goes, I'm sorry, I love you, right? It's
yeah,
that moment where he finally wins the big one, right? It's
yeah,
that moment of when he looks at the Undertaker in sheer fear, and it's the crazy amount of abuse he took in all those matches. Whereas
yeah.
like the Undertaker is phenomenal in Inhuman and Superhuman, and Sean is all too human in his moments.
Wow, that is wonderfully said. I'm definitely clipping that take. That is,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, no, I could not have said that better myself. Um, Common, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation today. We really loved having you on here. Tell us what events you have coming up, and where can everybody find you on social media?
Oh yeah, yeah. You can find me at Kamen _MK on Twitter and on my Instagram. And I think, yeah, my next match. Actually, let me pull up my calendar. I have a huge.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Next thing is I'll be walking around AwesomeCon in DC if that's around, and I'm defending this belt in April at SWA's first show of 2024. So you should
cool.
come check that out. It'll be it's and Dino's stepping back up to the belt. So
All right.
we'll see if he can pull it off. I think I got his number. I had it the first time. It was 1, 2, 3.
I love that. I love that. Well, we are certainly excited to see what you do in 2024. We'll be keeping our eyes peeled for all things Kamen MK. So, thank you so much again for joining us. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Wrestling Junkies podcast. For Kamen MK, I am Mr. Cincinnati. We will talk to you guys soon.